screen now is your opportunity to ask any questions that have occurred to you during the course of the presentations. Think about your own practice, think about the challenges that you may come across, thoughts for how you could develop measurement and evaluation further in the future, and we'll take a couple of questions. If you can say who your question's addressed to, your name and your organisation as well, that would be great. Who would like to kick us off?
Edward Harkins, here in a personal capacity today. I have a question for each of our speakers. I have to say thank you very much for two really, really helpful and informative presentations there. Elaine, I was interested right at the start about why evaluate. I know that you'll be well know that one of the conventional reasons for evaluating is for your own organisational self-learning and self-assessment, but you didn't have that down in your tip list. So what could you just clarify with you? Is that because this model is really very specifically about the actual service being delivered, the organisational learning, etc.? It's for another place.
So you're talking about for us internally?
Yes. Yes.
Well, we would, as I said at the bottom of that first slide, is about can we actually extend the reach? Can we actually get more people to actually engage with the product? And can we actually increase the impact of it? Can we increase the efficiency of it? So those are things that actually we would then plug back into product development. So we're closing the loop effectively and actually having a good effect on what we're doing.
The other thing, can I say that I was really impressed with your point about try and get the customers, clients, whatever, before they get in the process. Right. I've been recently advising a group of young guys with employment difficulties, getting jobs, and I have to say I've been very struck by the Job Centre Plus services, the amount of semi-official or unofficial signals and advice these guys get. They're very often about compliance and expectation rather than the benefits or the ambitions for the individuals. And Helen, I was really impressed by what I think is an incredibly ambitious aim. One of your aims is to try and link under the holistic, link financial to more general well-being, and as you said yourself, financial well-being like health, for example, isn't a static thing. And it really sounds very, very ambitious area to go into there. I wonder if you could say just a wee bit more about that.
So you mean linking with kind of broader well-being overall? Obviously it's quite difficult to say at this stage or at the very beginning, but what we're thinking right now is doing a lot of, combination, learning from what's already out there. In other areas we're not necessarily experts, obviously, when it comes to mental health, that kind of thing. Making sure there is a mechanism for referrals within the tool itself, so that they are able to access support and other specialists as well. Is that kind of what you're getting at, or?
Yes, it's just, I suppose what I'm just struck by is how dynamic and complex that whole thing will be.
Yes.
I come from a original community regeneration background in Scotland, and I think the inability to have contended with and addressed the complexities is one of the failures over the last couple of decades in that field. Yeah. And it just sounds a bit spookily familiar.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole point is it is a very, I think, ambitious project. But somebody put it quite well, I think, at the event in Wales when they just said this is really long overdue. So the way we're viewing it right now is let's just get all this information together, let's get something on the ground, and from there I think this tool will change massively over the next 2 years. I mean, our funders are very open to the idea of further pilots after these 10 months. You release it to the sector, but keep testing it, keep improving it. And I imagine what it will look like initially is a core set of questions on finances, and from then it's going to grow. You're going to have different modules, because as you can imagine, not every organization is going to be interested in everything to do with finances even. Some organizations won't be interested in looking at debt, for example, but to have a standardized way of measuring this available to organizations across the UK, kind of like a drop down. You can ask maybe one question that will route you to a further drop down. I think it's going to be the same with linking it to broader well-being. Our funders funded a similar organization in Washington, D.C. Again, that was about community development and regeneration. They're definitely where we would like to be in 2 years' time. They've been running for about 3 years. And this is what they've done. So they started off very specifically, and through piloting with service users, through speaking with other organizations, they've been able to develop a number of tools. So somebody who's who's part of this organisation called Success Measures, logs in, says what they want to measure, and there's actual tools for them to use and download, indicators, standardised questions, so that we're all measuring and capturing this information in the same way, which is fantastic, because then you end up with this data set, which we don't kind of have right now. So that's very much how I think this process is going to go. It's very good to see that it's happened before. It happened for this organisation. They're able to create a standardized tool across the entire United States, which is massively high scale. And as you say, community development regeneration is similar in that there's so many different areas it touches upon. So the way we're viewing it right now is we've got these bank of indicators, which we don't even have agreed right now in the sector of what financial well-being looks like. I think as we go through the pilot, it's going to very quickly add on additional questions. Not ones that everybody has to answer, but that are available for them if that need is highlighted in an intervention. Does that make sense?
Yes, good. I can say it's onwards and upwards.
Yeah.
We've actually done some research looking at using the British Household Panel, the data that's collected on that longitudinal study, looking at the link between making ends meet and general well-being. And it is established that actually if people can make ends meet, if you can actually get them to that state where they are no longer struggling, they're no longer drowning, it does have an impact on their well-being. So that information it has been done, that research is out there, and I think you find it's actually available on our website, or if it's not on ours, it's certainly on the FSA website. As part of any evaluation that I carry out, I always ask questions around stress, and I ask those before and afterwards, because one of the things that we are looking for our evaluations, our interventions, is a reduction in stress, a reduction in anxiety. And I actually use questions that are based on the Warwick Edinburgh mental health scale. There's 40, I think it's 14 questions, and I've actually condensed that down into one question, taken some key indicators and descriptors from that scale and condensed it down into one question. And I always ask that before and afterwards, because I'm looking for reduction in stress. That said, what I would caution is that for somebody who knows that they've got an issue, once you give them the solution to that, their stress levels drop. For somebody who doesn't realise they've got an issue and you put that issue on their agenda, on their radar, you wake them up to it, their stress levels go up before they come back down. So it is very important that you actually ask these questions and you understand the context in which they are being asked. Because you could find they go up before they come back down, or you could find they come straight down. But again, that's where we've taken that. We've also done some work with people with common mental health disorders to understand and ensure that our interventions are actually as effective and appropriate for those people, and that's an ad hoc piece of work that we've done. So we've recognised that yes, there is a very definite link between finance and well-being, general well-being, and making people's lives better at a very high level. So we're trying to make sure that we work with that agenda. Does that address your point?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, we've got another question at the back.
Sorry I'm late, I never heard the whole time. Train, really. My name is Maureen McGowan, I work with the Financial Council, currently seconded to the Financial Education team. And we go in from primary 4 right up to 90 plus, the groups that we deal with. And I tend to think that when we're doing these things, although they're great, they're kind of reactive as opposed to being proactive. We go in from age 7 doing financial education. We're talking to these kids about credit cards, store cards, all that kind of stuff. But it will be, I know we're doing all this stuff, but kind of advisable to be more proactive in the lines of day that somebody has that education before even leaving school, as to wait until they leave school to sort of say, now you're in debt, now we'll deal with it, or now you're not being educated on finances. This is where I find it kind of, we're always kind of reactive as opposed to proactive in these things.
I think we, Money Advice Service, we do both. We recognise that there is a difference between being proactive and being reactive. When we were still part of the Financial Services Authority, we developed a programme of financial education which was rolled out through schools. That's now embedded, and we no longer do that. We've actually moved that across onto another provider. but we still oversee that, and we find it's absolutely invaluable that actually the start of financial education do start in school at a very early age, but it's got to be appropriate content. The next point at which people actually start to really engage with their finances is when they have their first job or their first financial contract, if you like, which for some people actually tends to be their mobile phones. So it's that instant when they start to get an income or they're actually responsible for something financially, that's the moment at which they really then want to start engaging with this whole agenda, and they have another series of needs and learning needs. And then as they go through their life, they need the general financial and money acumen and an ethos, and then a life event will also that tend to change their income or expenditure also have an effect on them. So we try and make sure actually we're proactive with some of our interventions and others are reactive, and we use a mix.
I mean, I think you're right. We have a number of clients at Toynbee who don't come to us until they are in so much trouble, you know, and you just think if you'd come a month earlier, if the situation would be so much better. But I think that's partly the product. People don't like to think about when they're starting to get in trouble with their finances. You know, I volunteer as a debt advisor at the Field Advice Centre. People will bring a bag of these, you know, warning letters and bills, and you know, we see that a lot. But I think that's where it's so important to have kind of ongoing monitoring evaluation where possible to flag up problems before they arise. And a number of the organizations we've been doing the consultation events with, they envisage using this tool right at the start. So with social housing tenants pre-tenancy, you know, right before they even move in, find out what their situation is, and then assess, they say, 6 weeks in again. And it's sort of similar with other clients where possible. Obviously, there will always be clients who come to a service just when they're in trouble. They won't actively think. But I think if you are able to capture information at that kind of ongoing key points, there's, you know, the potential to flag up issues before they arise, make sure you're catching them early. I agree, it is a very difficult area.
Actually, education's obviously devolved to Scotland, so we'll have different arrangements in our schools, and the new curriculum for excellence does include financial capability as part of the core curriculum. So we are hopefully, obviously it's down to schools how they organise that. And
so we've been, the curriculum for excellence, we actually met up with Teaching Scotland for our products, and now what we're going to teach actually ticks the curriculum for excellence. Now we're actually finishing the project in December. We've been approached by education to hand over our materials because the schools just cannot do it. And the schools have said that, I mean, we've had a meeting from schools to say we cannot do the education that you're doing because that is not our, I'm a maths teacher, I'm an English teacher, you know, it's not that financial education is not part of their, what they say, what they teach.
yeah.
And so the interactive thing you were talking about earlier on, we have all that kind of stuff. And it's really good. I mean, we've got at primary students now talking to us about credit cards and store cards and overdrafts, and they understand APR because we've been seeing them from primary 4.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I think that's really, really, you know, when we get, you're talking about kids with mobile phones, primary 4s have got mobile phones. Yeah. High school kids are working and they don't read a wage slip, they don't understand wage slips. It's really, really important, I think, in the schools. I'm not grasping just how important in the curriculum for excellence is.
There's difficulty too in that often we'll find somebody will know what they should be doing, but that doesn't translate into positive behaviour.
And teachers themselves can often have, they have big confidence issues around these things.
They do.